this is Impact 2023. This is our continuing conversation where we talk about just different topics all across the board, current events, race, religion, everything that pops up out there. This is our continuing conversation. And this is your opportunity to have a conversation with us as we dive into some of these, topics here, some of these difficult topics here that we have to go through from time to time so that we can come up with some conclusions so we can talk it through. And as always, we ask that you feel free to participate by typing in your questions and your comments into the comment section. Again, your comments will be addressed as we can. Bring them up on the screen and we will talk directly to them. And as always, we don't dilly-dally around, we don't play, we go straight into it. And for those of you who have been living just totally under a rock, you may not know that there was another major incident of police brutality here in the United States, more specifically in Memphis, Tennessee. A gentleman named Tyre Nichols was beaten by 5 Memphis police officers to the point where he was taken to the hospital and then later died. Just recently on Friday, this past Friday, they showed the videotape, the cameras, the officer cameras of the event. And they had over 1 hour worth of footage where they show these police officers brutally and inhumanely beating this gentleman to the point of where he died. The comments have been said such as, this is worse than the Rodney King beating, for those of you who remember that from the 90s. Other comments have said, do not let your children see the video because of the graphic nature. It has been deemed extremely disturbing. But yet again, this is another incident that we have. And so we have an incident where there's 5 police officers who were fired and charged. There were another 2 police officers who, as the information comes in, who have been relieved of their assignments. Not yet fired and charged yet. And then even some EMTs, emergency fire, ambulance type individuals who were also relieved of their responsibilities as well. And so this goes down the line. We've been doing this show for a while. I've been doing this program for a while. And I'm always reminded when we had one of the earlier programs, we had some kids on here and we asked them whether or not they thought things would change. And they all said no. This was in 2020 when we had the pandemic, and we all asked them, was something going to change? After all of the protesting and everything that sparked off from Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and others. And they all said no. And all these kids were exactly and spot on that nothing was going to change in the sense of police were still going to be out here acting as they did with Tyre Nichols. And so let's talk about it. That's what we have to do. Let's talk about it. Solutions, problems, what we're going to be able to do to change this. And so I've brought on, we were been joined by Chris, who is going to be able to talk to us through it. First off, before we talk, I'm going to say this, and to everybody who's listening, there is a responsibility that we have, people like Chris and myself, and hopefully those of you who are watching. There's a responsibility that we have when we sit back and we think about, as Christians, how do we talk about this? And the only way to look at it is we're bound by a playbook. And so when we look at our playbook and we see, well, what did Jesus say when it comes to police and brutality and things like that? The only thing I can be reminded of at this moment is when Jesus was about to get arrested, and Peter came up and sliced off the ear of one of the soldiers who was coming in to arrest him. And what Jesus did was take it and pick the guy's ear up, put it back towards where it was supposed to go, and a comment of you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And so when you look at a situation like that, you see that we're bound by the fact that the Bible kind of tells us that, all right, forgiveness, all right, we got to come in with some patience. We can't come in the same way that Peter came in, where in all reality, we want to go out there and we want to get some street justice when it comes to these cops. And the only way to stop some things is an eye for an eye type situation. where they get one of ours, we get one of theirs. But we know that we're bound by the faith to not be able to do that. And so just as a reminder to people, as we have these conversations, that remember, we have to have these differently. Fortunately or unfortunately, we have to have these differently because we're bound by the faith that we believe in. And with that being said, Chris, thank you for joining us. Initial thoughts just on the whole situation. When you saw the tape, or when you first was exposed to this situation, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, to be honest, I was saddened by it. It's it's sad to see a young man be treated in such a manner, and especially 200 years or nearly 200 years after the end of slavery, to still see a black child, young man, treated in that manner. So it saddens me, but I'm also starting to become used to the pattern of seeing it, and I was especially saddened to know that this was a special task force that that somehow this is a part of their job to actually go around and use these type of tactics, against that population in Memphis. And so I haven't seen the entire tape. I didn't want to watch it because I understand exactly the inhumanity of it, the brutality of it. And I haven't seen the whole tape, but it's just a sad situation, man, just to know that law enforcement still, regardless of all of the different, reactions and publicity they're getting for this treatment, especially of black and brown, men, it's like it just continues on. And I have a son, so it scares me, and it makes me sad to know that this is a situation that continues to go on, even when we know that it's a problem.
Yeah. And I think you brought up a great point. I'm bringing this picture up. This is the gentleman. At the end of the day, this could be our kid. Matter of fact, this could be me. I've dressed like this before. That's be me.
Exactly how you dress.
Yeah, I mean, the reality of the matter is that that could be any one of us. There's nothing. Sometimes people will look at folk and they'll be like, "Oh, look at that guy, man. He look all big and intimidating." And even in the George Floyd case, people will look at George Floyd and be like, "Oh, he's a big giant man, and he's this dude look like me. He ain't got no real muscles out here and things like that. You just gonna go out here and beat him just like that, which means the point of that is that you'll go after anybody."
Right.
So here's one of the things. The problem that they're having is, all right, these guys were fired. All right, they're going to be charged with murder. However, they have something in their pocket which is called qualified immunity. And for everyone who doesn't know what qualified immunity is, that is the part that you cannot be we can't come after you, because if you're a government official, a government employee, a police officer, as long as you were doing something that cannot be matched up to something else, even if you violate somebody's constitutional rights, if you can't show somewhere in the past where that exact situation occurred and was deemed to be wrong, then you can't be expected to be reasonably responsible for what you did. And the Supreme Court just recently reaffirmed that. They just recently reaffirmed that qualified immunity was the law of the land, and it should continue to be the law of the land, which basically gives these police officers a way out. We can charge them criminally, we can try to sue them, but at the end of the day, they always have the qualified immunity in their back pocket. And so qualified immunity is pretty easy. They can sit back and say, well, this particular situation with 5 officers or 7 officers never happened before. We've seen it with 3. That's qualified immunity. It has to be the
Right.
exact same scenario, and you really have to argue that thing perfectly to get it over. So we give officers this green light to do what they do. What do you think needs to change in that sense? Like, we've talked about funding, taking away funding. We've talked about, the big thing now is police training. We've talked about, numerous solutions. And we're back at it again. What do you think the solution is?
Man, I've heard this said before. It may have been on your show, but I really honestly believe if you start punching at their pensions and some of these, kind of benefits of being a police officer, if you start taking away their pensions or threatening their pensions and threatening some of the benefits that they get as a police officer, you'll see a lot of this behavior change. And it definitely needs to come from the top down. Like, and I don't want to go the system under the bus, but if you have a rogue task force that's creating havoc in your city, the police commissioner needs to be dealt with, because this is under her watch, and I hate to see a black woman in that position, be accountable for somebody else's actions, but this is under her watch. Like, and I heard that this isn't the first incident that they've had of, kind of inhumanely treating, suspects or people that they have under the radar. So, it needs to start from the top down. Hold these commissioners accountable, hold the chiefs accountable, hold the lieutenants accountable. Everybody in a position needs to be treated just like these officers are, because they're complicit. I think if you start taking away some of their benefits and you start taking away some of their rankings and all of these things, you'll see a change, because at the end of the day, money talks.
Good. Yeah.
And if it's coming out of my pocket, I'll think twice before I do something that can jeopardize my livelihood.
That's all. That's a good point. That's a good point, because unfortunately, with the way that the society is, money talks, and it talks. It speaks loudly. But now we about to move this thing all the way left. All right, we really about to let's go at it. All right, take a look at this picture. These are the 5 officers who were charged with fire. What do you see here that's different from all of these other situations? When we talk about Derek Chauvin and George Floyd, when we talk about the officers who beat up Rodney King, what you see is these are some black officers. This is black officers going out here beating up a black man, murdering a black man. And here's the thing. Those black officers were fired and charged. It looks like the way everybody's talking about it, whether it be, different political leanings or all the little crazy people on TV, everybody's on the same page. They need to be charged. They need to be prosecuted, this and that. I know that you've seen what's been going on in Newport News, Virginia, where there was a 6-year-old boy who shot his teacher. And the superintendent, black, principal, black, vice principal, I'm not really sure, but I'm assuming black. All of them are gone. Superintendent, removed. Principal removed. Vice principal resigned on her own because she knew what was coming. When black people mess up, when black people do something wrong, everybody is on the same page. They quickly get their punishment. They quickly get in trouble. If these officers were white, if the people in the administration down Newport News with the school was white, in different situations, if the people were white, or let's not even say white, if they weren't black, would we be hearing all this? Or would we be hearing the same defenses that we always hear when it comes to police? Oh, well, the police, they were coming in there and, there's different situations, or you didn't really see what was going on. There's always a good defense, or not a good defense. There's always defense when it comes to other races doing some ridiculous police activities or doing some things in the school system that's not right. But as soon as we do it, we're immediately fired, charged. Where it takes these other places years before you ever see the video. But yet this is coming out the same year. It'd be years before you see the video because they need to work on the circumstances. Am I crazy, Chris?
And they showed the whole
video. Situation where because these guys are black, they getting a book thrown at them. But if they were white, we'd all be trying to make excuses.
Well, I wouldn't be trying to make excuses, but it's evident, it's clear, it took them for Chauvin. I don't know how many weeks it took before he even lost his job. After, putting his knee in George Floyd's neck, it took him weeks to lose his job. I'm not sure exactly how long, but it wasn't within a week, and he still had his job, and he wasn't charged for, I don't think, another couple of months. So we have evidence, and, a lot of the officers don't get charged at all. And if they do get charged, it gets dismissed. So it's a very interesting case, and we just got to recognize that the society that we live in is always going to have different standards for people of different backgrounds, cultures, and races. And so black people are held to a higher standard than white people are. It's just always been that way, and so I think there's some things we got to be realistic about. That's just how America works. I'm sad to say it, but that's just how it goes. And KRS-One made a beautiful song about the black cop.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, the black cop is basically the tool of the white cop.
You use the word overseer.
Officer.
Yeah.
And so it's just we just got to realize that this is the society that we live in. Unfortunately, it impacts too many of our young black men and I wouldn't even just say black. It just affects so many underprivileged individuals. Most of them tend to be African American, and it's it's not fair, but African Americans have to be 10 times as good, 10 times as well behaved, 10 times as respectful, and 10 times as effective in order to be given equal respect and equal treatment. So that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Some things will never change.
Comment that came in. There was a person of color on Fox News that claimed the reason that these young police officers did what they did was because there is a black woman in charge. He claimed it was like males being raised by a single mother.
Woo.
What do you think about that?
That's harsh. It's harsh, and I think that's an unfair indictment of the police chief, but she is responsible for those officers because they represent her police department. So I don't think it would have been any different had there been a white chief of police. White police would have been held to a different standard, and so officers would have been covered up probably a little bit better. But I do commend the police department in Memphis for being transparent and upfront, because they got to the middle of this quickly.
So I hear this. So tell me if I'm wrong. Would I be wrong if I expected my black racist police officers to be treated like white racist police officers? So if I demanded that you treat these black racist police officers who beat this gentleman because they thought that a black man deserved to die and was less than human, but I see how a white police officer who would have done the same thing gets treated, would I be wrong to say you need to treat them the same, or should I lean on the side of no, we need justice for everyone? For example, there are two more officers who were charged in these situations. Well, two more officers who were disciplined in these situations. One was white. He was relieved of his duty. He has not been fired. He has not been charged. The white gentleman was there. He not pepper sprayed. He tased Tyreek 2 times. It was all in the mix with everything, and then later pulled back and went back to his car for some reason. I'm not exactly sure. But yet he hasn't been fired. He's just been relieved of his duty. So even in this situation with black people who are in charge, the white officer still is getting better treatment. Am I wrong for saying you need to treat these black officers the same way you treat white ones? Or am I wrong because, or should I be, we need justice and you need to fire them and charge them and do them the way that you're supposed to?
Well, I mean, everybody I think should be held to the same standard, black or white. So,
but which way to go though? Are you saying that these officers should be treated the way that they should be charged, the way that we know they murderers, and they should be convicted of murder and charged with murder? Or should they be treated like every other white one? And so the same way all these white officers get off scot-free or with a slap on the wrist, should they be, which one should I be looking for? As a black man sitting here looking at this situation, which one should I be looking for?
I think that you should treat all of the officers the same way. So anybody that was involved in, I mean, even if they breathed on Tyreek Nichols in an aggressive manner, they should be dealt with. The guy that tased him should be set, because that taser may have had some kind of impact on his heart. It may have weakened his heart and he wouldn't have been able to do that. He needs to be held to the same standard that the other cops are. And so, and since they've been accused of murder, he's an accomplice to murder. I mean, it doesn't even matter. He pulled the taser. I think he tased him first. Am I right? I think that was the white officer the one that tased him first, and then I think the other squad came in. Yeah, and so the other squad came in to clean up. So they should be all treated the same way. But then, you know, and I was having this conversation with my mother. We don't know the whole story. Kind of slow down on some of the, you know, I guess, accusing of, you know, we don't know the whole story. So,
right, yeah.
And I know everybody's really emotional now because the guy was so young and he was black, you know, and this is a pattern that we've seen for, you know, for years, really since slavery ended, and even through slavery, that we've always dealt with. We're seeing it more often, and I think some of the emotions are still so raw. It's a wound that hasn't healed yet, and every time we see it, we're quick to assume that this was done out of just to kill another black boy, and we don't know the whole story. And as sad as it makes me to see another black boy killed, we got to get them. We got to hold them to the same standard. We got to give them their trial. We got to give them an opportunity to say what they did and why they did it, and then let the story, dictate who was wrong, who needs to be treated properly. So, sorry about that.
Yeah, I think you're
family
right
dog.
on in the sense of, as we talk before we even started talking, we have a responsibility, as men, as fathers, as Christians, to think of it in a different way, in a different light than just any person. Because again, our words have responsibility behind it, and our thoughts have responsibility behind it. And I think that's what you're really hitting it in a mature manner. Comment: as Black men, the 5 officers must answer for harming their own. Would Jewish cops have done that? Done what these officers did? So would a Jewish cop have done this to a Jewish person, or would a Indian cop have done this? Indian American cop done this to another Indian American or Hispanic American? So the comment: as a Black man, you gotta, you must answer for harming their own. Is there an issue there? Like, if you were going to sit back and talk to these officers, is that the question to ask? Like, come on, man, why are you going to do this to one of your own people? Is that a legitimate question?
I don't. That's a hard question to answer because, how many Jewish cops are there? and the Jewish cops, do they work in Jewish neighborhoods?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so, and do the Indian cops work in neighborhoods that are predominantly Indian? So, I'm not Blue Lives Matter, but I do recognize, and I know police officers. I know some good-hearted police officers, and I know that sometimes the job requires them to do things to protect themselves and to and uphold and protect society. But I think it's it's hard to say whether just because they were Black that they did it to this guy because he was Black. I don't think that they did that. I do think that they had a lack of regard for his humanity and the law. But I don't think that race had anything to do with it in that sense. I mean, I think in a deeper sense, it's just, a part of historically we'll come from a racist tradition. And so we automatically assume Black man criminal behavior. But I'm not sure if, I don't know, man. You just sent me into a very difficult idea, because it's hard to say, man. I mean, it's sad to see Black police officers beat on a Black guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if Jewish cops would beat kids like that, I don't think they would.
You brought up an interesting point about the fact that there's good officers. I have some people I grew up with that I know became police officers as well. I don't keep in touch with them as much, but I know that they were good. They're good guys, or they were good guys. And so I'm assuming that they're still good guys. But it comes to the fact of, you look at those 5 officers or the 7 officers. I'm pretty sure there's people out here who say that they're good guys, or 1 or 2 of them are good guys. But it doesn't matter if you're a good guy, in my opinion, if you allow bad guys to do bad things. Martin Luther King said it best. Here's this quote: "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. And
Mm.
that's the thing. Even if you had, so the silence of the good cops doesn't matter, or it's what you remember, because they always like, well, the majority of cops are good. Okay, let's say 99% of them are good. But if y'all gonna sit there and let the 1%
That
do
1%,
crazy
yeah.
stuff and beat and kill people, then the other 99% are pointless.
Yeah.
Address that when we're talking about these good cops. Because again, what if them cops could have been like, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm not gonna beat on that dude. But you didn't stop it. And that's your job.
Yeah.
So, because that's what do we bottom line, what should I say? Well, when I see a cop say, well, we got good cops out here too. What is that supposed to mean? Y'all ain't stopping the battles.
Yeah. And that's I think 100% of the problem is that it's okay, and the badge protects so many people. I kind of got a classification of cops, and I've met all three. You got your good cop. This is your good-hearted cop that does this job because it means something to him. He has a purpose, and he sees this as a contribution to his community. All right, so you got your good cop. That's the one that does it. Then you got your working cop, right? And this is your cop that does it because you know what? It's an honest way to pay the bills. He don't want no trouble. He's gonna try to do it the best way he can, and he's gonna try to make sure that he gets home safe to his family. And then you got your super cop. These are the cops that are extremely traumatized as kids, and they get an opportunity to have a sense of authority. The badge gives them power. It gives them the ability to do whatever they want to do, and so they become villainous almost, and they take advantage of the badge. So majority of the cops, I think, are your working cops, and then you got some good cops, and then you got some super cops that are going to take it to the extreme. And so when you got a group in the middle that just goes in one direction, that changes the whole dynamic of a city, And so, and nobody should be protected when they're taking advantage of the population of the people. So regardless of whether they're black or white, they shouldn't be treated any differently than any other person. Like you and I are held to the law. If we had done that to a boy in our neighborhood, in our community, we would have been held accountable for it. We wouldn't have had any special immunity to protect us. So they need to be dealt with the same way. Everybody that was involved needs to be dealt with. And the people that were overseeing them need to be dealt with as well.
All right. Well, look, we I missed that last part.
No,
all right.
it's all good.
Well, we've gone past our time, but I'm gonna leave you with this with one last question. Chris Rock said it. He said his number one job as a parent is to keep his daughter off of the pole. My wife says she does not want our son to play football because of concussions and all that. I say I don't want my son to be a cop. If he comes to me and he says that he wants to be a cop, we'd be like, I'm really disappointed. Tell me, and this is now. This may not be in the future. But tell me, if your son came to you and said he wants to be a cop, if your daughters came to you and said they wanted to be a cop, based on everything that we've seen over our lifetime, everything that we've experienced, all the good cops and bad cops or whatever, what would you say to them?
I would say be mindful and be aware that you got people that love you, but the majority of the people that you're going to be working with are going to have a hate for you. And you got an opportunity to change the perception of your job. So just take the responsibility on seriously and get some of these parking tickets off of my record, please.
Yeah, that's always a good one. Well, Chris, I appreciate you here, man. I know that's a rough one, man. It's at the end of the day, there's nothing good that comes out of this situation. But I appreciate you coming on here. I appreciate you answering all the questions. I appreciate all the comments. We didn't get to every single one, but keep them rolling in. For everyone, thank you for being a part of this program. We will be here again next week. Everybody, be safe out there and have a good one.